Welcome to the panel discussion. The theme of the discussion is the clock really ticking for encryption and how far we are from quantum computers actually breaking the encryption. We have with us Dr. Prem Lakshman Das. Dr. Prem is senior scientist at Society for Electronic Transactions and Security (SETS). He has completed his PhD in mathematics from Indian Statistical Institute. He works broadly in the domain of algorithmic aspects of algebra and number theory. In cryptology, his interests include cryptanalysis, public key systems, pairing based crypto with applications to cloud computing security, and aspects of post quantum cryptography. Welcome, Dr. Prem, to the panel.
Thank you. Thanks.
We have with us Dr. Devika Sharma. Dr. Devika is postdoctoral fellow at Weizmann Institute of Science, Israel. She has completed her PhD in mathematics from TIFR Mumbai and was silver medalist at IIT Mumbai during her masters. She is a number theorist by training and passion and specializes in arithmetic or post quantum cryptography. Welcome, Dr. Devika, to the panel.
Thank you so much, Anand.
We have with us Ms. Sarita Authi. She is Global CISO at UD Trucks and member of Executive Advisory Board, Palo Alto Networks. Prior to UD Trucks, she was Managing Director of PwC India and has held leadership positions at various firms like Cognizant and Infosys. She has proven track record in solution architecture, pre-sales, global delivery, IT strategy, consulting, and information security. Welcome, ma'am, to the panel and over to you.
Thank you, Anand. It's a privilege to be part of this. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, ma'am. Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. So,
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome.
yeah, first of all, I want to extend the warm welcome to Dr. Prem and Dr. Devika.
Thank you.
It's indeed a privilege to be part of this along with you and share the stage along with you today. Thank you so much for that. It's a very interesting topic what we have chosen for today about RDP for quantum encryption kind of technology, right? Um, given that we have some kind of encryption and across the globe, and certainly you know it by your academic research that all these encryption mechanisms what we have are easily breakable as of so in that context quantum plays a very important role. It's as of today it is something which is not yet breached actually. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to also set a context on why we think it is, why we practitioners of cybersecurity, we think it is relevant to go ahead with quantum. We have recent breaches such as colonial pipes or Ukraine gas leakage. So there are many things which are happening, and it's a very simple thing that malware drops into the network, picks up the required data, and it just uploads it into the site where it should go by designated by adversary groups. I personally believe that if we had quantum encryption deployed, uh, this wouldn't have happened because the encrypted data, it's easy to decrypt. Even if it is stolen, it is just of no use. So that is what I believe. In that context, I have a few questions to you, Dr. Devika. What is your thought on what is your thought on readiness about companies for for conventional to move from conventional encryption into quantum encryption? Is the clock really ticking for that movement? Is it really ticking for the conventional encryption to quantum encryption movement?
So, thank you, Sarita, for asking me this question. I do think it's very relevant in our day and age, and also in the time right now. So, the answer to this question by me would be both yes and no. It would depend on what you define as conventional. So, I'll explain why I say both yes and no. I say so. So far, conventionally, we've been encrypting our sensitive data by devising protocols that rely on the safety of the intractability of certain math problems. All of NSA's currently recommended algorithms are based on two math problems. The first one is factoring an integer. That's something that all of us learned in school. For instance, you're given 15 and you have to tell me back it's 3 times 5. Okay. And the second problem is the problem of discrete log, which also we study at some level in school or university, which is, just to give an example to people who haven't heard of it, if I give you 16 and ask you which power of 2 equals 16, you have to tell me the answer is 4. So these are the two math problems that most of the algorithms that we use right now are based on. And back in 94, fortunately or unfortunately for us, an American computer scientist called Peter Shor, he described a quantum algorithm, an algorithm which would run on a quantum machine that can solve both of these problems. Okay, both the problem of factoring an integer and discrete log. So yes, the clock is ticking for the current algorithms like RSA and elliptic curve cryptography. However, there are these two branches of cryptography that have come up. There's the lattice-based cryptography and isogenies-based cryptography. Again, these are two main math problems. And if you construct protocols, classical or quantum, that are based on the intractability of these two problems, they will be safe against quantum attacks. So I would say that the clock is not ticking on all the encryption, but yes, it definitely is ticking on the current encryption that is widely used.
Okay. I mean, on a same note, before I get to my another question, I have a point to make here. Is I know that I mean I can tell that at least 10 uh, or about 8 out of 10 of my clients, right? They are still not following the standard encryption also. So that may be a different discussion to see how they can directly adopt quantum encryption. Maybe I'll come to that in the end of the session. Because transition and getting into quantum encryption is a key actually. So, thank you for that note, Dr. Devika. I have a question to you, Dr. Prem. Is quantum key distribution is the only way to make system secure, or is there other way? Because I also see that QKD is one of the dependencies to actually on the adoption of quantum encryption. Because then we have to deploy this QKD or this quantum random number generation devices at those premises, which is not easy at this point of time. So, do you think QKD is the only way to make this system secure, or is there something else which is being explored by mathematicians?
Yeah. So, meaning I feel that the basic problem in the communication world today is a simplest one, which is peer to peer. So if the two people who are talking, say Alice and Bob, if they have the same key, then then they can do a lot of things with it. They can do encryption, they can do authentication, they can do whatever they want. So the problem now is, meaning even without the quantum computer playing a role, this is a hard problem. This is a very difficult problem to achieve. So the quantum computer makes it even harder. Okay. So like what meaning Dr. Devika was telling, like if you do the key agreement using say Diffie-Hellman, it's going to be insecure in the presence of a quantum adversary. But QKD is a mechanism which is going to give you a common key between two parties, but it will require some extra hardware, some extra effort. And it is proven to be secure against quantum adversaries because it is because of the laws of physics. Okay, so you'll be sending meaning photons, etc., which are not easily be tamperable by the adversaries. So by laws of nature, it is going to be secure against quantum adversaries. That being said, I suppose I don't want to invest on extra hardware. I don't want to do anything which is meaning some special engineering. I don't want to invest in. So in which case I want to continue to use my laptops, my servers, my usual network switches, etc. So how do I make sure that I'm quantum secure? So that is where this post-quantum cryptography comes in the picture, where like Dr. Devika was mentioning, lattice-based and isogeny-based. So these are some of the problems which are unlike the factoring and the discrete log problems, in the sense that there is no quantum attack on these problems as of now. So if you ask, given this description of isogeny, can you find the kernel of it? So that is not amenable to a polytime quantum attack. So this post-quantum cryptography is the plan B. So plan A is quantum key distribution. So plan B is post-quantum cryptography, where you use the classical systems, but you migrate to problems and mechanisms which are not easily attackable by, meaning as of today, there is no attack on these problems by a quantum enabled adversary. So yeah, so to summarize, plan A is QKD plus you do whatever you want, like classical computers, you do encryption, authentication, plan A. Plan B is no extra hardware. You continue to use your classical systems, but you migrate to post-quantum cryptography, where you use quantum, meaning secure problems and hence protocols, and then continue to use the traditional ones. So that is my take.
Yeah. Yeah, so Dr. Gotham is here. I would just quickly like to introduce him, and then we can have him on the stage. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we have with us Dr. Gotham Paul. Dr. Gotham is Associate Professor and Head of Cryptology and Security Research Unit at ISI Kolkata. His research interests include quantum information processing, cryptography and communication, steganography, etc. He has published about 40 papers in refereed international journals and more than 50 papers in refereed international conferences. In 2013, he was awarded the Young Scientist Platinum Jubilee Award at National Academy of Sciences, among other awards, accolades, and recognitions he has received during his career. Welcome, Dr. Gotham, to the panel. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Paul. Continuing our discussion on the previous question, I'm very curious about understanding one aspect. You mentioned about post-quantum cryptography, right?
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
which can be implemented on top of the existing classical crypto mechanisms. So, does that mean that in the network we have two types of encryptions happening?
No, it does not mean that. So, meaning if you take any, say, peer-to-peer communication, for example, a TLS handshake, for example. So, in that there is this authentication part, then there will be a key agreement part, and then after that there will be a, say, encryption of the whatever message you want to send. So, what post-quantum cryptography deals with is actually getting rid of this classical RSA or the elliptic curve based cryptography, throw it out, and then build new systems and then plug it. So that is what is post-quantum cryptography is about. So no, it is not building more crypto layers, but actually getting rid of some of them and replacing it with some systems which are, meaning as of today, quantum. So that is what it means. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, one more follow-up question on that. Sorry, I'm very getting very engrossed in what you're saying, and from because I'm a practitioner and I'm just looking at how I can replace my existing systems with quantum.
Sure.
One
Yes.
more question in the same note is how difficult is it to change? Because I see that this we have various encryption mechanisms which are already deployed right now. How easy or difficult is it to uh, get away with the existing RSA or any other mechanism and then start with quantum?
Yeah. So, meaning, I just want, pardon me, I just want to be a bit technical here, in the sense that, meaning, if you look at the crypto which is involved in a peer-to-peer communication, there is two part. One is this authenticated key. So let us just say key agreement, and then comes the encryption. Okay. So encryption is easy. So you can use any of the known block ciphers, stream ciphers, etc. And not only is it going to be classically secure, it is also going to be almost quantum secure, meaning some small issues, but no major issues. But the main problem is the key agreement. Like, meaning if I want to talk to, say, Gotham, so we don't have, suppose we are strangers and we don't have any common key, in which case we need to arrive at a key. So your TLS protocol is going to give you a key. After that, I do the encryption. So the difficult part is actually modifying this TLS protocol, where I meaning give an alternative solution for this key agreement problem, where I throw out this classical RSA or a defilement based key agreement, and then replace it with the meaning the new ones which are coming up, so that the entire protocol becomes quantum secure. So answer to your question is, it is not very easy, in the sense that you need to design it, you need to design the protocol, you need to test it, and then you need to be assured that it is going to be quantum secure. And then the difficult part is the key agreement. So encryption is easy, whatever is following up is easy, but the difficult part is the encryption, or the difficult part is the key agreement or the key management. That is the difficult part. So
Yeah.
that is what is being done in the crypto community right now. So that is what is happening right now. Yes.
Okay, okay, got it. Thank you so much. Dr. Paul, welcome to the session. I want to understand from you. I have a question for you. So, is QKD is the only aspect of quantum cryptography, or do we have some other mechanism as per your? I just want to get your perspective here.
Am I audible? Is it fine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so no, there are QKD is actually only one aspect of quantum cryptography, and more than quantum cryptography, it is actually a means to aid classical cryptography by establishing a classical secret key in a quantum mechanically secure way, right? So, if we talk about the whole spectrum of quantum cryptography, there are a lot more options. So, for example, we can talk about quantum secret sharing, right, which is an analog of classical secret sharing. So the idea is that one secret will be shared among a number of people, right? So maybe let's say you shared among five persons, and then you mandate that okay, any three of them should get together to reconstruct the secret. So an application of such primitives would be in, for example, in banking sector, when you have a bank locker, and let's say the key is shared between your manager and maybe one bank officer and you, and then you need one of them at least to be present and the customer, right? So two out of three, that kind of scenario. It can be in military. Suppose you want to launch a missile, and there are five, majors who want to make the decision. So you want to make sure that okay, at least let's say four of them agree. Right? So you can set the threshold accordingly. You can design the scheme. So quantum secret sharing is a classical analog of that, where in the classical case, the secret is a classical information, classical bit string. Whereas in the quantum case, it will be quantum states, right? So basically, you will have then five quantum particles. You can share 5 or 10, like it's a parameter, right? So it's an n number of quantum particles you can share with n individuals, and then you require certain amount of them, sometimes all of them, sometimes a subset of them, to get together to reconstruct either part of the secret or the whole of the secret. So that is one domain. So another domain which is very prominent nowadays is quantum secure direct communication. Okay, so that is something like you do not need a secret key to do a communication. You can share your message through the quantum channel directly. So how it happens? So you can imagine how quantum key distribution occurs, right? So quantum key distribution is nothing but a means to share a message where the message happens to be the secret key, right? The only thing is that the sender and the receiver do not have any control over the bit positions that will be used as the secret key. So to ensure security, they have to discard certain bit positions, and they have to allow certain bit positions, and then they will synchronize. So it will be kind of a random, bit string that will be established. Whereas in quantum secure direct communication, the sender decides that okay, this is my exact message. I have to send it bit by bit. So it is similar to QKD, but it does some additional steps to ensure that the exact message goes across to the other side. So it's a controlled QKD kind of a scenario where you send the message directly and securely. So that's called quantum secure direct communication. And that is one way, sender to receiver. When you can make it happen both way, in the duplex scenario, then it is called quantum dialogue. So it is like a
quantum analog of classical chat box, secure chat box over a network. And then you can extend it to from two party to multiple parties, and then it becomes a quantum conference, okay, which is an extension of what we're doing right now in the classical realm.
Thank you so much. It's good one. Thank you so much. Dr. Devika, I want to understand from you. You are actually based out of Israel and in the place where it's a mecca of security. So I want to understand from you that what is the time frame for this quantum cryptography adoption? Do you think we need to worry about the happenings around us, the breaches, what are happening around us, and um, we have so many things happening around us. So, do you think we need to worry about this? That's one thing. And can also, what's the practical implication of this? Can also Gmail users and consumer side of applications be hacked if they're using quantum computers?
Okay, thank you for the question. I will break it down into two. I will answer the first part first about the timeline. In order to, okay, let's understand the timeline by taking the example again of RSA, because once RSA is broken, things will become much more serious for the world. So right now, we use RSA with key sizes around 2000 bits. That's the smallest recommended size. And we need the Shor's algorithm to factor an integer about the same size as well. So theoretically, we would need a quantum computer which roughly has like 14,000 qubits in order to run the Shor's algorithm to break RSA. Okay, but now here's the catch. You need, when we talk about theoretically needing 14,000 qubits, we're talking about noiseless qubits. But right now in the world, in reality, we only have noisy qubits. So with error correcting and other fault tolerant techniques, approximately 1500 noisy qubits can make one noiseless qubit. So if we do the math, we would, and given our currently realizable engineering standards, we would need a quantum computer that should have around 20 million noisy qubits to run for 8 hours to factor an integer that is the size of the key for RSA that we're using right now. And so this is where we're supposed to get in order to be really panicked. But what's
Yeah,
happening right now
yeah.
is with the last announcement of Google, we only have a 53 qubit machine. And the roadmaps that Google and IBM have come out with, they claim to have, well, Google claims that they will have a machine as big as with 1 million qubits by the end of this decade. And IBM plans to get one with like 1,000 qubits in a couple of years. So we're still quite far away from 20 million qubits, a working quantum computer with 20 million qubits. So we shouldn't panic already, but yes, I think we should be worried already. And to answer who should be worried or who should be concerned, all of us will be affected by this because, like the example Dr. Prem was talking about, even when we when you're surfing the internet and we do a Google search, we our identity needs to be secure online, and also the information that we get from the search engine, we believe that it hasn't been read or modified by a malicious party while it was being transferred on the internet. So all of these things, so even with your 5 seconds of internet surfing, you've already encountered two encryption protocols, and these are again based on RSA and Diffie-Hellman algorithms. And so there you are. Also, again, for another example, when you are banking online, you have your two-step authentication, and you assume that the bank has a solid security measure of its own. And you take comfort in the fact that your sensitive data will not leak. I'm talking as a layperson. This is for everybody. All citizens of the world encounter these protocols. So we should be concerned, yes, because they are at risk already with the current developments. But I think we should. So for laymen, I think we just need to wait and see how things are developing, but at the same time, we should make an effort in understanding how the development will eventually affect us. About other sectors, that should be more worried is, again, like I said, the banks should be more worried because their computerized existence will be compromised, and also governments should be far more worried than people like us because they have far more sensitive data that is relevant for decades to come. So yeah, I think it's the time that we should um, open our eyes and act on what's happening in the world. Yeah.
Dr.
And to answer the second question, with the advent of quantum technologies, like Dr. Prem also explained, and also Dr. Gotham did, yes, our communication will become far more secure. Depending on either you take in quantum technologies or even quantum safe cryptography, whatever you adapt. So it is the need of the hour to shift to those things.
What about critical infrastructure, Dr. Devika? That's something which is life-threatening as well if something happens there, right? Do you think that quantum cryptography has a play there in that area? Because the reason for this question is it's these devices are pretty. Some of them are legacy, and they may not be
Sorry, some of them are.
legacy, and they may not be ready for any kind of encryption, leave alone quantum.
Sorry, I didn't follow the question too much.
Okay.
Can you ask again?
Yeah. So my question is, you said that government should be worried because they have a lot of sensitive information. Banks would be another area. Would you also believe that critical infrastructure like oil and gas or power sector, are these sectors should also be worried?
These sectors, first of all, will obviously I, again, yes and no. They should be worried because everything will be affected. Since the internet will be affected, things will definitely be affected. But there's also some silver lining for them because optimization will be improved in quantum algorithms. So they're also looking forward. These sectors are actually even looking forward to quantum hardware coming into existence.
Yeah.
So yeah. So again, the answer is yes and no.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Prem, I have a question for you on the prepared. That is, what is the path which NIST is taking in post quantum standardization, or what are the testing and validations happening in this so that we start with quantum cryptography in India also?
Yeah. So the background is that the NIST announced one competition where they said that they are planning to standardize post-quantum cryptography. So what it means is that, meaning in a very loose sense, replacements for your RSA and Diffie Hellman. Okay, so let us just meaning in a loose sense. Okay, so they're looking for protocols which are going to kind of be replacements for your signatures or key agreement based on this RSA slash Diffie Hellman. So this was started in 2016-17, I guess, and I think it is now in the third, three rounds have been completed. Now it's in the fourth round. There is a plan to come up with meaning the plan is to come up with a portfolio of algorithms. It's not just one algorithm, a portfolio of algorithms, and it deals only with the so-called sorry for being technical public key cryptography, in the sense that it is not going to find replacements for your AES, for example, or any block cipher. It's not going to tell you what block cipher to use, for example. It's going to tell you what digital signature algorithms you want to use, should be using, or public key encryption algorithms, or key encapsulation mechanisms. So this is, I'm just meaning using the terms as it is from the call for proposals from NIST. So they are going to standardize digital signatures, public key encryption slash key agreement protocols. So meaning those of us who are aware of these standards, so these sit into this FIPS standard. So, for example, FIPS 186-4 or SP 800-56A. So The FIPS 186-4 is the digital signature standards, which is derived based on your RSCR decision. So SP 800-56A is for the key agreement based on discrete law. Like that, there are various standards. Now, those standards need to be rewritten, where the protocols will be replaced with the quantum secure ones. So right now, the competition, as I said, is in the it's entered the it's now in the third round. Yeah, there will be probably one more round. And right now we have 7 so-called finalists, 3 signature algorithms which are finalists, and 3 alternatives. And I'm just reading out from my notes. So 4 public key or key establishment algorithms and 5 alternatives. So in some sense, there are 7 meaning they are graded as some finalists and alternatives. So 7 finalists and 8 alternatives. So that is where it stands. So there will be probably one more round of analysis where people will submit cryptanalysis on it. They'll try to find weaknesses. They'll try to give proofs. They'll try to find bugs in the proofs. So all these things will happen. And the point I want to mention here is that this is an international effort. It's not specific to the US government, or it's not specific to the EU, etc. So these are the candidates which will become the backbone for tomorrow's internet protocol. So as we know, internet is everywhere. It's not specific to your US or UK. So whatever applies there will apply naturally to us also, to India also. So uh, so in that sense, meaning some of us are also looking at how to understand these protocols, and then how to use and kind of evangelize them. All these things we are currently doing, and Gotham is also a part of it. So that is what we are doing. So in a nutshell, so third round, there are 15 of them, 7 finalists, 8 of the alternatives. So there will be a portfolio of algorithms, and these will become tomorrow's digital signature and the key agreement standards. That is where things stand. And like Devika ma'am said, so it's going to be based on your super singular isogeny or lattices or code-based problems, and they will not be dependent on naturally the factoring or the discrete law. That is where things stand. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
That's fantastic to know, actually. It's a pleasure for us cybersecurity practitioners. Dr. Paul, I have a question for you. We know that in an ideal scenario, quantum crypto protocols are pretty much they're secure. But is there a way? Is there Is there any possibility of side channel attacks in quantum computing?
Yes, there is certainly a possibility. So, scheme may be mathematically secure perfectly, both in classical and quantum domain. But side channel attacks and these kind of scenarios where you have an alternate channel, or maybe you can interact with this disturbance to extract certain amount of information. Or for quantum domain, for example, the sender and the receiver, they have to do some operations at their end locally. Let's not talk about the communication channel, but locally, before sending the information, they need to do quantum encoding, right? After receiving the information, they need to do quantum measurements, right? So they need to have some physical devices for those mappings, and those physical devices could be compromised, and they could be leaking your data and transmitting to an eavesdropper. So that is very much possible. Even the whole quantum channel is secure. So fortunately, there are ways coming up to mitigate those issues. So there is a paradigm which is called device independent quantum cryptography. So here the idea is that both the devices that are used in the sender and the receiver's, let's say, lab or station, they could be compromised, right? And there are even stronger notions that not only they could be compromised, but those devices let then be manufactured by the eavesdropper as well. So you can purchase the devices from someone whom you do not know, but might be an eavesdropper, himself or herself, and selling you those devices. There are some secret circuit which will carry all your measurement outputs to the other channels. So but there due to entanglement and other artifacts of quantum mechanics, it is possible to devise certain cryptographic scheme in a device independent manner. and they will be side channel resistant completely. Now the challenge is that it is not a plug and play thing that okay, you give me a random quantum protocol and I convert it to make it device independent, right? It is not like that. So it is very much protocol specific, algorithm specific. So not everything is possible to convert to device independent. So there are a lot of demand of research in this domain, that okay, which ones could be could be made device independent, which one could not be. So that's a new paradigm, and this is kind of a striking difference with classical domain, because in classical domain you cannot really prevent side channel attack. I mean, you can build some countermeasures, but it's like an arms race, right? So, the attacker makes one step, then the designer makes one step of advancement, then the attacker finds a way to again break into that secure shell, and then they have some results. So there is an arms race continuously. There is an improvement going on both on the designer side and on the attacker side. But in the quantum domain, once you establish and prove that your scheme is device independent, then it is secured forever. It does not matter how much power your side channel attackers has. So that is possible.
Okay. Uh, are there any specific mechanisms which are being developed to identify these compromised hardwares which are generating the random numbers?
Yes, there are some strategies to test how much bias there is in a random number generating system, whether it is a software system or hardware system, classical system or quantum system. There are statistical techniques to identify the biases and remove those biases. But of course, it depends on the design. It depends on how much access we are getting to, like whether we are getting the access to just the output. Is the device completely black box, or we are getting an access to intermediate output? So it depends on the scenario, but in principle, it is possible.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Devika, would you like to comment on what could be the proactive strategy to prepare ourselves in this space?
Yes, thank you. So I will begin with what's already happening. Like Dr. Prem said, and also Dr. Gotham is a part of it. NIST is organized this competition to come up with the best set of algorithms that should be and so far are quantum resistant. So governments all over the world are funding a lot of quantum technologies. They're funding a lot of quantum startups, and also at the same time they are funding research in post-quantum cryptography. Again, like Dr. Prem explained, the NIST candidates have only completed round three. I think they will announce their final list after round four. So research in that area is ongoing and obviously still needs funds. And those funds are coming in. So people are aware that this is the need of the hour and that they should act on it. That's the top level. Also the financial industry is defining a roadmap for themselves and they're following it. They're in partnership with these big hardware developers like Amazon or D-Wave, IBM, and Google, and their specialists will help them develop what the organization needs. Also, the organization themselves have small teams. For instance, Goldman Sachs is one of the places. I'm sure there are all the other places also have such small teams that are focused on quantum computing that is relevant for the organization they're a part of. So that's another thing that people are doing, which does make sense again. And coming to the masses, again, like I said, it would be a responsible behavior on our part to keep ourselves informed of what's happening in this sector in the upcoming years. And if people do want to invest more time and energy, then there are a lot of articles available and there are events like this to attend and ask questions to the experts. And also there's a Q India initiative by students where they come together and they learn quantum topics around quantum technologies. So there's something to do for everybody right now.
Yeah. Thank
So,
you so
ma'am,
much.
we are running out of time.
Yeah,
There is so much to discuss about this high risk, high reward, exciting field of quantum
yeah.
technology and quantum encryption. So, there is one question from audience. We'll take that question. Request the panelists to share their insights, and then we can close it.
Yeah.
So they've asked, do you think a physically deployable quantum computer is going to be economical enough for industry use, given that qubits require the temperature to be cooled below zero for superconducting rods to work? Very technical but very basic question, I think, for quantum computer enthusiasts. If you could just address this.
Uh, what
Can I
I
say something?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So the fact is, to understand this, we have to look at the history of the evolution of classical computing as well, right? So in 1950s, when just flip-flops were being discovered, invented. So that time, like imagine one individually buying a personal computer, right? That was out of scope. I mean, it was too costly and too high maintenance. If you have a full-fledged computer, it will be of the size of a big room, right? Even that would not be enough. So that was the scenario. And after just 30 years from that time, 1980s and 90s, so we have the IT revolution. Almost everyone started to use computer, like every household, every industry, whether they are directly connected to IT industry or not, the banking sector, the railway sector, government sector, everywhere, everything, the hotel and the front desk reception, everyone started to use computer. So the same is going to happen in the quantum domain as well. So right now, the technology may not be mature enough to make it less costly or to make it sustainable. But I'm confident the way the research is progressing all around the world in quantum memory, in quantum communication, in quantum computation. So in a few decades, we'll definitely have, uh, you know, accessible quantum computer, affordable quantum computers to everyone.
I just want to add to that you also have IBM and Google giving you quantum devices to use through the cloud. So that's also a possibility.
That is
Rest.
good. Yeah. Thanks, Dr. David. For me, it has been very insightful and learning from all of you, and I'm very thankful to Dr. Prem, Dr. Paul, and Dr. Devika for very insightful and some of the very practical perspective. Thank you so much for that. Dr. Paul, I really liked the conversation we had about the sites attack and the compromised devices. That's my concern, irrespective of quantum. That's my concern in critical infrastructure security, always. So, some of these concepts what Dr. Prem shared and Dr. Devika shared is a learning for me. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thanks a
Thank you
lot
so
for
much for
having me.
sharing your
Thank you.
insights with the audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Anand.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Anand.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. I'll request the audience to stay tuned in. We have another session coming up on crypto, enabling digitization and guaranteeing privacy. And this will include discussion on searchable encryption, exciting field of homomorphic encryption for privacy and confidential computing. Yeah, so thank you.